Well, hello there. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I decided I need to work on my my lesson introductions because I feel like you guys are probably getting bored of me saying like, "Hey everyone," but also maybe I'm just overthinking the whole thing. So anyhow, today we are going to focus on one of the most annoying, but also um, I don't even know what word to use here. In some ways, I think most character building thing that happens in life and that will almost certainly happen. It not almost certainly happen, it will certainly happen, and that's failure. And it's not something I think as a society we like talking about, and it's not something as individuals we like hearing about. No one likes being a failure. No one likes failing, but the reality of the situation is, um, in your personal life and especially in a professional setting, is you will fail. Failure is inevitable. Um, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So that's why we need to work on something um, called resiliency, and that is the ability to it's how well you deal with failure, essentially. How good are you at picking yourself up after you failed? And it's hard. It's really hard. It's something that I struggle with all of the time. And so we're gonna get into it. Um, so first of all, going about answering that first question, how do you deal with failure? Well, guess what? New York Times agrees with us. Well, we got a running lady. She's jumping around. Everyone fails, so here's how to pick yourself back up. Right? That whole idea of resiliency. See, look at all that. And you can read, and I'm gonna post a link to this article, and I encourage you guys to read it. But I'm gonna summarize it for you guys real quick. So first of all, when you fail, or when you're going to do something, you got to think to yourself, what's the worst that can happen? What is the worst thing that can happen? And sometimes that's hard to do. Um, maybe you have to give, I know that in like a lot of like language classes, if you're in one of those, um, you often have to give like a speech or just public speaking. I don't know if that's a class out west, but you know, if you guys go to college, you almost certainly will have to do one of these. Um, so what's the worst that can happen? Usually in those types of situations, the worst that can happen is, you don't pass the test. You don't um, get the grade you wanted. But at the end of the day, that's okay. Like if you're just going in it with this fixed mindset, well, I failed my test. And so that's a measure of who I am as a person. I'm a failure. You're not going to get anywhere. But if you have a growth mindset, and this is like actual like academic, which I'm sure you guys have heard because it's really basic, but academic language that I hear all of the time um, in college. Um, if you have a growth mindset, well, then it's going to be like, you know what? Yeah, so I bombed that speech. It went awful. So I failed that test. But guess what? Like, I can do better. Um, what resources can I get? What are the possible benefits of my failure? So I failed the test. Well, but now I know what to study for the next test. That's kind of the mindset you need. So, first of all, what's the worst that could happen? Don't ever let fear of failure get in the way of opportunity. Okay? Write that down. um, you're more than your mistakes. So what you failed the test? So what you got a bad grade on something? So what you didn't get into that play you wanted to. So what? You didn't get the promotion you wanted to. Who cares? You didn't get hired. That doesn't define you as a person. You're more than that. Um, we make a lot of mistakes in our lives. Um, and you just need to have that understanding that you're more than your mistakes. And then this is the last one. Practice self-compassion. And this is something I struggle with too, right? Like you're forgive yourself, you know, love yourself, be okay with who you are despite your failures, you know. It's really hard to it's really easy, I mean, after you're thought you could accomplish something and you fall short to be really hard on yourself. Why am I so stupid? Why didn't I, study properly? Why, or, start that mindset of comparing yourself to others. Well, so and so did better on this, and so I should have done better. So and so got this job, and it's ridiculous that they got the job and I didn't get the job, and whatever. You know what? You just gotta take it as it is. You know what? Like, yeah, I didn't get the outcome I wanted, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean I'm any less of a person. Other people fail too. Imagine what you'd say to a friend in that situation. That is a good point because it's a lot easier to be compassionate towards others, I find, than it is to be towards yourself. Like, well, if my friend did poorly on this test they studied for, I'd say, well, you know what, it's just a test. You can do better next time. But when I fail this test, well, that's the end of the world. I was stupid. So practice that self-compassion. Whoop. And then real quick, I just want to go over um, 23 incredibly successful people who failed at first by Business Insider. Winston Churchill, um, didn't, people pretty much didn't like him for a really long time. He led what was his super unsuccessful World War II? He led a campaign in World War One that was super unsuccessful, and as like the naval person of the army, you should really check into this. Um, and it went terribly, and people didn't like him forever. And then he came back and was the prime minister of England during World War II and really helped defeat um, the Nazis. Winston Churchill, Thomas Edison. It's too stupid to learn anything. How ridiculous is that, Thomas Edison? Oprah Winfrey, fired from her first television job in Baltimore, where she faced sexism and harassment. Walt Disney said that he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Now, his company is like the cornerstone of American entertainment. Steven Spielberg rejected from college multiple times. The guy who invented Macy's had failed retail ventures. The guy who invented Honda was, often was criticized. Colonel Sanders fired from dozens of jobs. Former Vice President Dick Cheney dropped out of Yale, um, and then returned only to drop out again. Isaac Newton, mother pulled him out of school so he could run the farm. This U.S. Olympic skater ended up becoming an editor at Vogue, and then it looks like she was able to get the editor-in-chief position. The list just goes on. Albert Einstein had difficulty communicating and learning in a traditional manner. Um, this guy, J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter lady, Darwin, evolution guy, Van Gogh, Harrison Ford. Look at this. Look at this. Failure. Oh, there's what's his face? Henry Ford. Who is this guy? Dyson, the vacuum guy. Stephen King. I believe that's Stephen King. Yep. Yep. So failure is inevitable. A lot of people fail, and that's okay. That was the point of that whole thing. So all I want you to do for your exit ticket, your assignment is tell me about the time you overcame failure or how can you overcome failure. So either or works. I really encourage you to, if you're going for the second option, go ahead and reference this article. I think that'll be really helpful for you guys. So yeah, and email me if you have any questions.